Yesterday, I watched My Octopus Teacher for the first time, and I felt so touched, so moved by the beauty of this piece of art that I decided to record a full video with the 5 things that I learned from this incredible documentary. So for those of you who haven't watched it, first of all, I highly recommend you go check it out because it's an absolute masterpiece. It's a piece of art. It's marvelous. It's wonderful. So if you haven't already, I want you to, after finishing this video, to go check it out on Netflix, My Octopus Teacher. I promise you will not regret it. So to give a little bit of context, the documentary is about Craig Foster, who discovers a small octopus in a part in the sea near where he lives, and he decides to document the relationship that he builds with this animal over time. I was so incredibly moved by the whole storyline, the timing, the narration. It was spot on, and this guy has really an eye for detail. And the first thing that I noticed as I was watching the documentary was the amount of patience that he has. You can really feel in the way he makes the shots and the way he speaks and the attention to detail that he is a very patient guy who really likes to pay attention to the small intricacies and details of his surroundings. And I think he picked that up back in the day when he was shooting in South Africa on the savannah. He always had to, keep an eye on his surroundings, and the tribes who were hunting, they taught him how to really read the trails of the animals and the smallest intricacies of the nature surrounding him. And I thought it was somehow something that pulled me in. That's the first thing that I thought of, is this guy is very patient. And I think it's a beautiful virtue when you have a lot of patience, because when you do, as you will see in the continuation of this video, it will allow you to really develop a relationship not only with other human beings, but also with the surroundings, the environment that you find yourself in. So the first lesson, the first thing that I realized after watching this documentary is the beauty of patience, the beauty of being receptive to the slow pace of things, right? He had this charm about him which made him all the more relatable, which made him all the more intriguing to follow along for the journey because of his patience. And it made me reflect on my own patience and the patience of others. And I believe that it's just such a beautiful thing to develop this virtue. The second lesson that I learned is that we can't deny our true nature or inclination towards something. Now, what do I mean by that? This guy is a filmmaker at heart. He is a filmmaker at his core. And in the story, he mentions a time where he didn't really feel like making movies and videos, and it had a tremendous impact on his personal life and his relationships with his wife, with his son. He felt not good in his own skin. Now, when he entered the water and he started to explore the forest, the underwater forest, he felt again this kind of like spark that took him back to his filmmaking days, and he felt the urge to pick up his camera again and start filming and shooting pictures. And so he reignited this inner source, this inner nature that then ultimately led to the creation of this incredible documentary. And so for you, this can mean that you too have a nature, a natural inclination towards something. And honoring that natural inclination will make you light up again. It will result, if you really listen to your true nature, it will result in a masterpiece. I truly believe that this is the case. If we tap into our true nature and we honor it, and we go about creating and manifesting this ultimate potential, it will lead to the creation of a real masterpiece. For myself personally, this was a very strong message of hope that if I would continue to listen to my intuition, if I would continue to honor my true nature, in the future, this will result in hopefully another masterpiece. So again, I want to invite you to not be afraid. I want to invite you to really tap into your source, to tap into your power, and to manifest your gift, because it will turn out to be magnificent. So please set aside the fears and just allow your creativity, allow your energy to flow through you. And as you do that, the world will open itself up to receiving your gift, and it will be a sight to be seen. It will really make the world a better place if you honor your true nature and you bring forth the gift that is residing within you. So the third lesson is the role that trust plays in cultivating and building a meaningful relationship. So as he discovers the octopus, at first she's very scared, very afraid. Of course, is he a predator? Is he gonna hurt her? What's he gonna do? She doesn't know. So she's very protective, but still very curious, because he stays calm and he's not making any jerky movements. So as he explores her and he comes back every single day, she starts to kind of like understand that he's not there to harm her, and she starts to trust him slowly. So at first she leaves the den holding back her arms, still, holding the stones, and then after a while, as he returns every day after day, finally, the octopus lets go of the den and she just goes about her business while he's around. And he describes this moment as such a profound experience, because he understood that the octopus now trusts him fully to just do her stuff without actually paying attention to him or being afraid that he might hurt her. And at some point, actually, the octopus starts to explore him, and they actually make physical contact at some point. It's a beautiful shot, absolutely magnificent shot when it happens, and like it really touched me. And it got me thinking that, okay, why is it so meaningful and special to build this relationship with this octopus instead of like a random crab or a fish? Firstly, it's of course the intelligence of the animal. The octopi are such incredibly intelligent animals. I didn't know this. I knew a little bit about how they are such beautiful pieces of art almost. They can morph shapes and colors and textures. It's incredible animals. And so the intelligence of the animal creates a point where we as humans can connect, or at least feel like we can connect. If it's just a dumb fish, if you will, then there is less room for this creating of meaning and creating of trust, because trust can have different levels, and the more intelligent the being you're communicating with is, the more intense the trust can become. The role that trust plays in building a meaningful relationship was very clear to me in this interaction, right? Because especially at some point, spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, he goes to see her and accidentally drops one of his lenses, and she darts away. She is scared, right? He scared her, and she just completely left the den. He couldn't find her for a week. Eventually he discovered where she moved to, and as he found her, she was very receptive and she was not afraid. It was like he proved to her that he was trustworthy, because he really went looking for her, and she recognized him. And of course, initially she was still a little bit wary, but afterwards she again decided to show herself. And I think that's just such a beautiful analogy with human beings. Building the trust can create this super meaningful connection between you and another human being, which allows them and yourself to really open up, to really show yourself. And yes, sometimes the trust can be broken and you can dart away in fear, but if you are very gentle and patient, which he was incredibly patient, you can mend the wounds. Rebuilding the trust can actually be a way to deepen the relationship. It can actually make it even more close and profound, because it shows that you're willing to put in the time and the effort to create again this meaningful connection between the two of you. So that was the third thing that I was really thinking about after watching My Octopus Teacher. The fourth thing is that he spent so much time discovering her habitat, discovering the underwater forest. He was really paying attention to all the small details, especially when he had to find her again after she left the first den. He had to trace her, he had to track her, and that's where he brought in his knowledge of the tribes in Africa who were masters at spotting the subtle differences, the subtle details, the subtle clues that animals leave when they are roaming through the desert in order to find prey, right? He was looking for her, so he started to learn to recognize the trails she left behind. Maybe small crab shells and algae that were a little bit different, or traces in the sand. So he really learned to explore this whole world of hers in meticulous detail, so detailed, so incredibly nuanced, right? And I thought it was so inspiring to think about that, because I believe that it was a small area in the sea. It was not the complete sea, it was not the complete world. It was maybe, I don't know, 100 square meters area that he was exploring day and day and day after day. And there is a certain meaning to be found there too, to really go so deep in one direction, in one area of your life. For example, you can go very deep with someone, with one person. Every day is a chance to read their subtle cues and traces, and to learn the intricacies of their personalities and their behaviors and the way they behave within their social environment. I used to be a guy who is more in the width, experience a lot of experiences, meet a lot of people, date a lot of girls, all these different experiences. But I came to understand as I grew older the value of really exploring one person or exploring a few people, my best friends. Every single day I can learn something new about them. They're constantly changing, I'm constantly changing. And if we stay in close touch, then this evolving of both our characters can be a tremendous source of inspiration, a tremendous source to fuel my curiosity, because I think it's so beautiful to really pay attention to the details. And the way he did it, the way he put it into visual images, the way he did the storytelling, it was just so inspiring, and it really made me reflect on how I think that figuring out the details about your relationships, the people who are in your life, maybe even your living environment, maybe even the part in the city where you live. You go for a walk every day and you think that you've seen everything, and then at some point you're like, all of a sudden you pay attention, oh, I've actually never seen this building before. Was it there? I can't even remember that I ever saw it, right? And you discover these new details, and maybe you find your favorite flower around the corner that pops up every year or whatever, right? But there is such a charm in these details and exploring these details, and I think it's very beautiful if you can honestly, genuinely, with true curiosity, look for these small signs, these small subtleties, these small differences. There is always something new to learn about, for example, your partner. If you've been married for 20 years, some people tend to feel like, oh, I know everything about my partner and it's so boring and nothing new. I invite you to look at it from a different perspective. Maybe there is a whole new world inside the smallest details. And if you combine that with patience and trust, that is just beautiful virtues and sources of magnificence. And then the last part, again, this will be kind of like a spoiler alert, even though it kind of makes sense too, because actually I didn't know this, but octopi, they only live for around a year. So he actually visited her every single day for around 80% of her life. The total amount of days he spent with her were maybe 360 or something. And at the end of their lifespan, they actually mate, and then they die, because it requires so much resources to lay the eggs, and it requires so much energy from the mother that she sacrifices herself for her offspring. Now, the way he allowed this process to unfold, the way he didn't want to interfere, the way he accepted the fact that, okay, her life has come to an end, And he realized that there is a time for exploration, there is a time for building trust and a beautiful relationship, there is a time for deepening the relationship, and then eventually there is also a time to let it go. And I thought it was so profound the way he accepted the natural flow of things, and he knew that she was going to die very soon. And so the way he showed his acceptance in this process, I think was so beautiful, so inspiring. And it made me think about letting go when it's time to let go. He had such a fantastic, beautiful experience with this animal, building the relationship, mapping her territory, exploring, playing, touching her, you know. It was such a beautiful story, a beautiful romance even, right? But then in the end, it has to, all good things come to an end. All good things take time, exploring the details, deepening the relationship, building the trust, but also all good things come to an end. And it doesn't have to make the whole experience a bad experience because she dies. It makes the whole experience so much more meaningful and profound when you can actually see the whole situation, the completeness of the whole experience with all its factors. And letting go, saying goodbye is part of that. It makes the whole experience more complete. It doesn't detract from the fact that he had such wonderful memories and moments with her. It makes it all the more real. And you want to let go of things when it's time to let go. Sometimes we tend to drag out things for too long, which then leaves this sour, bitter taste in our mouths, because we understand that intuitively we knew that we actually had to let go earlier. And of course, he couldn't prevent her from dying because it was literally genetically her last week. And in some cases in our lives, there are ways to prevent certain situations or things from happening, so we try to exert control. But letting go of things when the time is due can make the whole experience complete, and it doesn't detract from the beauty and the memories that you were able to have, the things that you were able to experience. And that was the last thing that it really made me think of. Yes, I've had many beautiful experiences in my life, and it's also important to say goodbye, right? It's also important to close certain chapters. And on that note, I think it's perfect to close the chapter of this video. So I hope you learned something from this. I hope you felt inspired by the things that I thought of after watching this incredibly beautiful documentary. And if you haven't watched it, I cannot say it enough. Check it out. It's on Netflix, My Octopus Teacher. It's a piece of art. It's so beautiful. You will not regret watching it. So I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for your time, for being here with me. And as always, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.